What's up, world, and welcome back to the Global Frequency. I am Nefarious.
And I'm Frequency Girl.
And today we are joined by the Count of Monte Cristo himself, Aaron Dowen from Catalyst Comics, here to tell us all about his upcoming comic book crowdfunding campaign, Tilt 1 through 4, launching soon on Kickstarter. What's up, Aaron? How you doing, buddy?
Well, hello, also Aaron. Nice to be on with a fellow Aaron.
Right? There are a couple of us floating around these parts.
Yeah. I didn't. It's a rare thing to come across another Aaron.
It's true.
So before we get into the campaign, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where are you from?
Yeah. So originally I was born in Florida. Live most of my time in North Carolina, though right now I bounce between North Carolina and Pennsylvania. You know, life's crazy. But yeah, that's pretty much my past. I'm going on 33 years old next month. Next week. Oh gosh.
Oh.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah, happy early birthday. We should,
sorry, that just triggered something in me.
Well, don't worry, you're not over 40 yet, so you have nothing to worry about. Once you hit 40,
right.
Then it's all downhill.
Yeah,
all downhill from there. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah.
How did you come up in the world?
Yeah. So I grew up in a pastor's home. So I'm a pastor's kid. That's been most of my life, which means when I was young in my teens, I had to learn how to play an instrument because when you're a pastor's kid, that's your job. So I started playing guitar and writing music. So my early writing stuff was mostly music. Then I moved into writing some short story stuff and poems, but I was a teenager, so thankfully those poems cannot be found anywhere. And if somehow they are, I would deny anything to do with my name. And then from there, I went into to college and I got my master's in education. And I was a teacher for a while. I taught creative writing and I taught English literature. Had a great time doing that. And during that time is when I started experimenting with writing comic book scripts. And once I got into that, I fell in love with the medium. I still write prose and I still tie it into the stuff that we do for Catalyst as well as stuff outside of Catalyst. But that's where I've been ever since then. Catalyst is started in 2017 and our first publication came out in 2019.
2017 started in 2017 and you put out your first publication in 2019.
Okay.
So what were some of your first comics? What comics influenced you growing up? And do you remember any of the early books that I guess formed your perception of comic books?
The first comic book I was ever given as a gift was actually it was a Dick Tracy volume. It was Dick Tracy volume 3 from like 1993 or something like that. And it was my parents that gave it to me. And I don't think they realized that it was kind of inappropriate for a young kid. But it really brought me into that medium of storytelling. And that's when I started falling in love with the idea of crime noir, which is another style that I get to write now. So it's pretty cool. And then of course from there it was Spider-Man, Nightwing. Those are the two biggest influences on how I write superhero stuff. And then Green Lantern was another one.
So you were more like a DC guy than a Marvel guy, it sounds.
Well, nowadays, not really either. I really do a lot more indie than anything else and a lot more small press. And then of course,
but early on, you seem to like, dipped your toe into the DC pool and gone in that direction. What is it about the DC universe comparatively with the Marvel universe? Or I should say, what was it about the DC universe comparatively with the Marvel universe you found drawn to?
Yeah, I think it was more of
a lot of people have that distinction, like a lot of
for
people.
Sure. Yeah, I think it was the depth of the character stories. I felt like DC handled that a little bit better, where you could get more invested into a character without the complete zaniness. Because Marvel always played a little bit more on the, to me anyway, played a little bit more on the humorous side. And I guess I was just a darker kid, and that explains why I was in like a pop punk band in the teenage years.
I mean, it wasn't everybody though.
That's true.
We're all misunderstood.
That's all it is.
Extra points if you were in ska pop punk band.
No, I didn't go that far though. I do have some friends that still play in ska bands.
Hey, right on.
Excellent. And will and forever always be. It's my really fish. Such a ska girl at heart.
So you mentioned reading mostly indie, but is there anything on the stands today that like currently draws your interest? Do you find anything from any of the publishers out there appealing?
Yes.
Boom or
So yeah, the last thing that I've really gone through was that's on every stand was Vinyl from Doug Wagner. And it's not my normal forte of stuff, but I became pretty good friends with Doug over a chat that we had to have a while back, where we're both talking about our respective spy things. He has Thomas River and I have One Last Job. And then after that conversation, we just clicked and we talk like every couple of days now. So when he came out with Vinyl, I was like, all right, well, let me get into this whole world. And his storytelling is just, it's phenomenal. He knows how to tell a good tale in a short run of scripts. So,
is that like your preferred medium right now to be dabbling in? Is like spycraft? Because I noticed that One Last Job is sort of like the most recent thing that's on the website. So you're like aiming traffic towards that before, I guess, you continue with Tilt that's coming out later in June. Is that kind of, have you found that genre rewarding to write? Has that been kind of like your primary focus?
So I think a lot of it had to do with my things that I loved when I was growing up. Like I said, the first thing I was ever given was a Dick Tracy thing, which is, mysterious. It has detective work. And then shows that I loved when I was younger were shows like Chuck, and Burn Notice is one of my all-time favorite shows. And they both had a massive influence, as well as 007. So for me, it was something that it's almost like I got to write my own homage series. So lately, that's what we were putting effort into while we were just here waiting on Tilt to be done. But the reason we even do superhero stuff is because it was our first love for myself and the other co-owner. So I don't see us stopping.
Right on. I remember my first Dick Tracy comic. Actually, it was one of the older ones, and then there was a long break in which I was exploring other comics, and then the Dick Tracy movie came out. Do you remember that one, the Warren Beatty movie?
Oh yeah.
And then like Dick Tracy was huge again. Everyone was wearing like the yellow trench coat and hat, and they like the resurgence of the comic strips. I remember that too. I thought the two-way radio watch was like the coolest thing.
For sure.
Now we have like arc reactors and stuff like that are popular in the media.
Yeah.
But back then it was like the two-way radio watch was the height of
for sure
sophistication. So why comics? There's something very special about storytelling through sequential art. What is it about this medium in particular that drew your interest, and how'd you get your start in it, really?
So like I said, when I was early on, I was writing short stories. But then, discovering that but I guess realizing that anyone can try to write comics. And I said that very specifically. I realized, you're telling me I can write something and then actually visually get someone else to represent what I'm trying to say. And that idea, once it's in your head, it's like, I need to see some of these stories that are in my brain show up. And so once that kind of triggered in my brain, I was closet writing superhero stories. And the first script I ever wrote was Paradigm. And then I had a whole bunch of extra notes for that character. And all those notes are what became Tilt. And so from there, it was just realizing that one of my other friends was closet writing superhero stuff too. So we were like, what if we started or tried to start a company and see what happens? And then he disappeared off the face of the earth. And I ended up bringing in the current artist on Paradigm, which is Matt Sotelo, as the other co-owner. But superhero, again, was that first love. And it was the idea that you can take a style of writing and then actually see it put on paper.
Yes. a lot of people had sort of like the introduction to the comic book genre was like superheroes, so that was their first love. But everyone branches out after that. Would you say you've been more influenced by Western comics dominantly, or have you dabbled in sort of Eastern comics, manga, and the the Belgian, French, European style comics like Ben Désolé? I can't ever remember the name of that. Tintin and all of them. You remember what it's called?
No.
I just call it the Belgian school of comics.
I would say pretty hardcore Western. And I know people love anime. It's never clicked with me. And I can say it's probably because I haven't tried a whole lot of them. Once I realized it wasn't really my forte, I didn't keep trying. But we're getting ready to, myself and Matt, we do a show where we just talk about random stuff. And we both decided we should at least try because he doesn't care that much about it either. So
I was gonna say, up until you said you're gonna start trying, I was gonna say I think you just made a big
friend
friend out of Mo.
Yeah. So before we go any further,
which,
we should say hello to the chat. We had Eric coming in first saying, "Damn it, it looked like it said tit in the feed thumbnail. I am sorry for that slight."
He has his shirt off a lot in the book, so.
But your dyslexia is not my problem. That's a you problem, Eric. We got Black Rose saying Neff said there would be booba. I don't know where everyone's getting all that from. We got Mo Biggs hailing the chat. We've also got Jake Twister, long time no see, buddy. Thank you so much for tuning in. It has been a hot minute since Jake was with us.
So much so that
he thinks I've lost weight.
Yeah, I'd say he thought that you
have you lost weight. If so, big ups, bro. No, like I said, I think it's just the facial hair makes my jawline look a little bit more chiseled, and the tight t-shirt too. Doesn't hurt.
I really shrunk it. Sorry.
Yeah.
B-Rose apparently took a vow of silence due to
chastity. You almost said chastity. He doesn't need to take a vow of chastity. It's like already imposed, right? Like he's not getting any, so it's not like a vow that he has to take.
But it's kind of Mo imposed, not self-imposed.
It's Mo enforced.
Mo enforced.
We've also got Witty channel name up in the chat. Thanks so much. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in.
Says,
yep.
Okay,
now he's on the right account. Yep. And we got Dying Days of YouTube.
Hey,
thanks, DD, for tuning in. We got Dean James, Comics Mate. And it looks like we are up to date with the rest of the chat. B-Rose, I already roasted him to hell after he said it. You clipped removing in context and played it repeatedly.
I think you skipped.
Yeah, Mo Biggs, your anger should be directed at Juanito. I mean, he's the one who said the thing. Okay, so I've been out of the loop for a good 2 weeks. I don't know what's happening either, Dean. It's okay. I've been out of the loop for a good 2 weeks because we've been out of state working on a contract house in Massachusetts, preparing it for leasing to renters. So I have no idea what is currently going on Twitter, on YouTube, on anything, and I'm going to need to catch up, guys. So all of your references, I would love to, be in the know, but right now they're all going over my head. Poor Count in Monte Cristo here is probably not really familiar with all the goofball stuff we get up to on YouTube anyway. So
Ian also said that
he doesn't know what's happening. All right. So
it's a general state of things.
We're going to move on then.
But thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you so much for tuning in. So you wear a lot of hats. You're a writer, an editor, a graphic designer, a project manager, and I'm sure you look great in all of them, just like Dick Tracy in that yellow fedora. But which of them in particular, if there is one, and I'm sure they're all appealing for different reasons, do you feel is most rewarding?
Writing, for sure. In any of its mediums, whether it's comic books or prose, I find that the most rewarding and lets me connect with people to a different level, or more so lets them into my brain, which is a chaotic mess. So
yeah, I know, like you're in good company then. Our brain, because we
share one.
Right, is generally a chaotic mess as well. And I know a lot of people in the chat feel the same way, that our brain is a chaotic mess. And not only do you do all those things, but you also have podcasts. I think you've got 2, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Why don't you tell us about those?
Yeah, so Beards and Comics podcast was the first one, and its inception was Matt and I just kind of talking about what it's like being a indie comics small press publisher, the real behind the scenes of just our business chats, really, and people we've come across, people that have been shady, people that aren't. And then as that progressed, we got to talk to more and more other creators. So we like to say that first iteration of it is great for people who just want to learn what it's like to actually be an indie comic book creator. We had great chats and roundtables with artists and writers and people doing Kickstarters and all that. And then it took a different iteration, which is we put it on hiatus and we just brought it back last week. And it's just a matter of us sitting down with one piece of property and just having a discussion. I mean, he's an artist, I'm a writer. We get to have fun that way. So last week we did Doctor Strange 2, and then this week we're just going to talk about Moon Knight. And then next week I think we're going to talk about Ron's Gone Wrong. And then the reason I said we're going to try anime is because everyone was like, well, you need to do one on at least one season of something. So we were like, all right, I guess we can suck it up and do that.
Which anime are you doing? Which season are you doing? And we're giving Mo, the opportunity here to roast us.
Okay. I mean, well, if people have suggestions, we need them, because the only one that people said was the Spy X Family or something. Is the best I know to call it, and it's only been like one season. I think it might be Netflix.
Spy X Family. I don't know that one.
It's pretty new. Well, I think that's what it's called. Spy X Family.
Hey,
comes right up.
Hey, B Rose, tell us about Spy X Family. I think I've seen a still of it when I was scrolling through Netflix, avoiding the weepy stuff to watch.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly what I was doing.
I know you are not into anime at all, but me reading the synopsis thinks that if you were, this might actually be an anime that you would be interested in if you were into that. You're not. Definitely
I asked B Rose to elaborate. He's probably typing.
Either or he's still timed out.
To explain to us, and as soon as he posts it, Mo's going to time him out, so we won't have anything. So why don't you read a synopsis?
Spy X Family is a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Tatsuo Endo. The story follows a spy who has to build a family to execute a mission, not realizing that the girl he adopts as his daughter is a telepath, and the woman he agrees to be in a marriage with is a skilled assassin.
Interesting.
It's like, okay. Telepath child, assassin wife.
I remember. No, that was it. That was the still. I just seen a Spy X thirsty artwork on Twitter. That's the one that I remember. It's the dude on the left and his wife on the right and the daughter in the middle. And there's a slight upshot. So they get like a tiny little bit of her panties, and it was causing this big explosion on Twitter. That I do remember from the past couple, weeks ago. El Padrino says, "Do Naruto, bruh."
Yeah, well, see, here's the problem: is I asked very specifically if it was one season of one show, preferably under like 40 episodes, because I'm not putting that much of a time commitment into something I don't care about.
That's fair.
That makes total sense. You want to keep to like 12 episodes or less.
Yes,
you don't want to go like full on neck deep into the world of weebery that we call, anime propaganda on Netflix.
B-Rose says it's a very wholesome. Oh, you took it down.
Yeah, I did, because B-Rose is not allowed to say anything.
Oh, okay. I know Mo said that he's allowed to talk if he de-wrenches himself on his own channel.
But has he done that yet?
No, but I think it's like because he said,
okay,
I will stop
if he's saying here and in this chat for future reference that he is accepting this punishment, that he's allowing Mo to time him out on his channel, we'll put up his comments.
Mo says, B-Rose, if you break this promise, there is no redemption. So
okay, hey, so you've heard it here, folks. It is indelibly left in footage on YouTube to be referenced in the future. God, I'm sorry, our channel is so weird.
Also, hi, Juanito.
Hey, yeah.
Hi, Armin.
Hey, Armin. Glad to have you back with us. We got RJ in the chat somewhere. Yeah, there he is. Hey, what's up, Crypto Blast?
Do a podcast episode of Berserk
did that show like last
for
week?
every issue.
Berserk is a very popular manga and also anime, but like the early episodes, like the first arc is a really rough arc, and I don't know if it would be good to review because it's full of like, I guess it does not have a ending. There's a climax and just no denouement. You get no resolution. You get no anything. Like it has a horrible thing happen and then it's just left open-ended. So I don't know if you could actually review that. It is a good
series
though, and if you stick with it, if you read the manga, from what I understand, because I haven't done so myself,
No, definitely not.
you will not be disappointed. It's very good.
Dying Days is adding to the confusion, I'm thinking, by dropping platypus trivia.
Is
on
the
us.
only egg mammal which makes I can't read that. It's too
Monotreme?
small on my screen. A monotreme, actually. Okay. The platypus is also venomous. Not poisonous, venomous.
Yes.
You can eat a platypus, I would
But
assume.
you don't want it to eat you.
No, well, it won't. And it's not like a bite. It's got little barbs on like its elbows or something. It's weird.
No thanks.
It's so weird.
Jake Twister says that because of your stipulation that you miss out on Monster then, because that fucker's over 70 strong episodes.
He
Guess
did
what?
also
They can
suggest
keep 'em.
standalone.
They can keep them.
He did suggest standalone complex earlier, which is a decent anime from what I understand. The second season, I think, is better than the first one though.
Oh wait,
I don't know if I'm feeling good about it.
I feel my roast of Aaron Dowen has been gate kept. I also haven't decided whether it's Dowen or Dowen.
Yeah, I leave it up to everyone now.
I'm
I'm looking for it.
Sorry, it was not on purpose. I got distracted. Oh, here it is. If I was going to roast this dude, it would be for going to Jimmy
Neutron's Barber. Very good. Very, very
Man,
good.
haven't heard that one before.
But honestly, I mean, like it's if you're gonna be parodied for looking like a cartoon character,
Like
could be
Jimmy Neutron
worse.
is
Could be
great.
worse. than
It's
Jimmy
different
Neutron.
now because if anyone has kids and they've seen Paw Patrol, then Ryder's hair is pretty much he stole my hairdo.
Yes, Berserk has a conclusion, Jake, but I'm saying in the very first season of the anime, it just ends.
Look,
after
we're not watching a
the thing
whole
happens.
anime, people. We're talking about one season of one show.
No, that's
I'm not
the
doing
thing.
that.
Berserk has one thing, and then it never really continued. Then they started doing movies or like features.
So I'll say a good place for that for like our other show. Our other show is called the Dementophobia Podcast. The whole purpose of that show is we read fan fiction and we just joke around and have fun with it. So we do plan to do like Naruto or some anime fan fiction if we get a good enough person to sit down and read it to us, because I want it read to me so I can laugh. But yeah, that's the purpose of that show. We've done My Little Pony. We've done Power Rangers. I think we're getting ready to do a Golden Girls fan fiction. And then we're just going to keep going through random stuff.
I would love to see a Golden Girls fan fiction. That's right up there, man. Is it just going to be regular vanilla Golden Girls, or are you going to do your own little spin on it? Maybe give them some superpowers.
Well, the new goal is before it was us finding ones on fanfiction.net and me reading it to Matt and then just having chats, random reaction or whatever. The new goal is to bring in different hosts for every time, and they get to pick the story that they read to us, and then we get to react to it.
Cool. Well, if you're ever looking for a reader, I used to read professionally because I taught kindergarten. So read aloud is pretty much all I did all day.
By the way,
Okay,
that's something that the two of you have in common.
I know. I was saying you're talking.
Don't threaten me with a good time, because I would absolutely love to have somebody like schedule it. We'll schedule it out, and you can pick whatever it is.
We've got Maromi joining us. Thank you so much for tuning
in. We also
in.
have Ollie in the chat.
Where is he?
Where is he? That we're back home. We're not doing a house tour.
Yeah, we weren't going to do a house tour.
No, we were not. But everyone was trying to convince us to.
No, not happening. Sorry, guys. I can't let that location get doxxed.
True.
Just not something that we can allow happening. So you mentioned that you started Catalyst Comics back in 2017. This is once again he's contributing to the confusion.
I know. It's making me laugh. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're allowed to laugh. It's fine. So you started in 2017. You put out your first comic in 2019. Tell us about that comic. Tell us who's on your team and what books you put out so far.
Yeah. So what happened first was getting Matt Sotelo to start work on Paradigm, and we met through a mutual friend that some people might know. His name's Louis Small Jr. He did Vampirella back in the 90s, and he's done some work for DC, Marvel. did a lot of covers, but also did interior work for Vampirella. Anyway, he was in our community. I was friends with him. Matt was friends with him. We didn't know that. And then he introduced us because I was looking at starting something, and Matt was looking at doing his first comic book. So Matt and I talked. We had a goal in mind, and it was to finish and put out one comic book. And that comic book was Paradigm issue 1. That's the first one that we put out, and that is set in the same universe as Tilt. So it's a superhero, and it's all tied into the same universe. And then from that, Tilt number 1 came out right after that. And then we put out Tilt number 2. And then we changed it up a little bit, and we did a dark horror and fantasy story, which is, dark fantasy and horror story, which is called Welcome to Everville. And that one is, I don't want to give it away because so much of it's spoilers, even though it's like over a year old now. But it was a lot of fun for us. That was another one that had Matt do the artwork for. And so it's been fun to watch him kind of grow as an artist. But if you're like a horror fan, Welcome to Everville is the jam. Tilt is Joe DeSantos was the artist, and Ramon Amancio was the colorist. And then we just brought in Dave Lentz to letter Tilt 4, and then he's going to go back and letter 1 through 3 when we do the trade. But we did Tilt, Welcome to Everville, Tilt 3, One Last Job 1, and then we just finished up One Last Job 2. And those are both spy thrillers. They're black and white. Daniel Gimeno, he's from Spain. He's a fantastic artist. He has like a very gritty style, and he's the one that did the art for that. One Last Job number 1 was the first cover that I ever did. So it's kind of cool to have a cover that I actually made as a book. And then now we're looking forward to Tilt 4, which is going to close out the whole first Tilt arc.
So 4 issues in the arc, and where are you planning to take it from there?
So the Catalyst Comics superhero universe itself, right now there are 42 comic book issues that come out before the first major crossover. And they're the different heroes, their Paradigm, Tilt, Silhouette. There's also prose short stories that go along with these. So far we put out 2. One of them is called Silhouette Shadow Games. And that one's told from the perspective of the person that's going to become her arch nemesis, kind of hunting her down. And then the other one's called Fire by Night, and that's set back in like a medieval setting. And then the next one is called A Bullet for the Road, and that one is a Western. And then the last one will be called Spy on a Tuesday, and that one's going to be like 1950s Red Scare stuff. But those are all tied in together. So 42 comic book issues plus the short stories. And then they kind of all wrap together for a crossover.
Right on. So you've got long-term plans for all of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And outside of that, like here recently, I've started talking to other studios and things that I can start working with and writing stuff for. And then different creators that we've become friends with that are looking for other creators as well. So I'm branching out. I have way too many stories. I have just stacks of notebooks that I hope someday at least a quarter of them will get made. So we'll see.
Mo Biggs actually has the best suggestion that I've seen flying through the chat as far as one season of anime to watch. Corey in the House is it, man. You should definitely just do one. The first season of Corey in the House, and everyone will love it. It'll be great. So why write for indie? I know you've got long-term plans for the series. You've got a whole lot of stories brewing. You're making connections within, the writers' circles, teaming up with people. But why try and expand into the indie sphere? A lot of people want to have more mainstream aspirations. What is it about self-publishing that appeals to you?
Yeah, so the first thing that ever the first person that I ever heard speak about self-publishing was Kirk Lindo, and a lot of people might not know who Kirk Lindo is, but he had talked about the purpose of self-publishing and how he had tried for years and years to get into Marvel or DC, and he would come close, but then something would happen and it would fall through, and he never was able to. But then he started putting out this series. I don't remember the name of it, but it was like an erotic series. But he has published a lot of them, has made a lot of money doing it, and now he has the opportunity. And the thing that he said there was now when they come to him, they have to come to him on his terms. And for me, that's more impactful than anything else because I have these stories to tell, and it's not necessary for me to sell the rights to them to other bigger companies so that, I lose what I might be capable of figuring out down the road. when Matt and I started with this stuff, it was also a love for the business side of exploring, how far can we take this? What things can we learn? And we spent a lot of time trying to figure out who we need to meet, who we need to talk to, and what things are viable for commercial success down the road.
Makes a lot of sense. Have you had any, I guess, mentors in the indie comic crowd? Has anyone shown you the ropes, or have you had to sort of learn through the school of hard knocks what to do and what not to do?
Mostly School of Hard Knocks. When we kind of just got into everything, we met some people, and that was nice. And you ask them questions, and they give you kind of glossy answers, like they're not willing to share, I guess, quote unquote, trade secrets. And that's one of the reasons we started our podcast, because we thought that was crap. And we would rather just be open and honest with people. And you know what? We'll give you the information. If you don't use it right, that's kind of on you. We're always very open with people if they ask us stuff. We had to figure out most of it the hard way. As far as mentors, for me, people that I looked up to and still am in contact with, I try to look at what's the next step above. And John Schlim Jr. is one of our buddies. He put out Thistle Heart, Goth Ghost Girl, and he sold a few different properties to places like Behemoth, and he has another one that I think is going to Scout. So besides him, James Pruitt was one of the publishers for Scout Comics. He's not with them anymore, but at the time he was, and he was actually somehow related to me in a crazy cousin branch, and I had no idea. So with that, Joe Pruitt is his brother. So Joe Pruitt is the publisher for Aftershock Comics. So both of them I've talked to on occasion to, try to get some different input. And then now, like, Doug Wagner is kind of my biggest mentor.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you've got a pretty well-developed know-how in all of this, and that's reflected by the fact that you've done 6 different Kickstarters in the past 3 years. That's pretty good, putting out so many in such a short amount of time. What have you learned specifically about crowdfunding that you can share with us? Like, what are the most important elements and bases to cover if you're going to be going to crowdfunding?
Well, we constantly learn every time we do it, and the first and foremost, establish your base before you launch your first campaign, because if you don't, well, you'll find out why it's important. For us, we built no base. Nobody knew who we were. We put out Paradigm 1, and we ended up with like 34 backers. We had a really high goal. It was like 4,500. We got about halfway there when 2 different people came to us, and they said, get whatever you can get, and we'll make sure that it clears, because we want to help with your company starting. And that was, imperative, and changed the game for us, because it took a lot more stress came off of me. And then after that, we were like, we can't go through that again. So we started putting effort into meeting people and talking to people, the podcast, seeing what things would impact people growing and growing with our company and discovering our stuff. And I think the smartest thing we've done so far is last January, we started offering Tilt #1 for free to anybody that signed up for our email list. So it goes straight to your inbox. You can open it up, check it out whenever. And hopefully you dig the series enough to wait for a campaign to come around so you can, grab the other issues of it. And then things you'll also learn is that people will give you crap advice, and you might think that they're on your side, but sometimes they're really not.
So I've never found in the networking that we've done anyone to like try and purposefully sabotage us. And I don't know if that's like a rarity, or if that, like if we've been lucky, or if we've just been like talking to people that don't do that. But it has been refreshing to find that like this business isn't quite as cutthroat as some of the other fields that I've, been in before. For the most part, a lot of people want to see each other succeed and see more products come to market. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there who withhold information or give information that isn't necessarily the best of its kind. Have you ever found anyone trying to get in your way or block your success?
I can't say that I have directly. There have been things that have happened more so indirectly, where people kind of are sharing information that's not exactly valid, or it's outdated, or people are trying to tell you how to market in a way that's, you know, years old. And so for a lot of what Matt and I ended up doing is we just tried to guinea pig ourselves. And then, you know, along the way that we'd have people say really just dumb things. Like I know one of the things was, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's like certain groups I'm sure you guys have come across, just little sections here and there, just little pockets of different people, especially in the indie world. And that little pocket works together. This little pocket works together. And there's a bunch of them. And learning which ones are the more destructive ones is important. And it was important for us because we knew the ones that were ending up being more destructive. So we had to kind of distance ourselves from them and try to find the people that were more about building everybody else up, because that's what's important to us too, is we want the market of indie comics in particular to be strong and not joked about and not like taken non-seriously.
Right. So while we've been chatting, a couple more people trickled in here. We got Josh. Welcome back. Thank you very much. We are glad to be back in the studio.
Yes.
We did do a show from the road. It was a little bit awkward, but thank you so much for tuning in. We got Lord Crackhead. Thank you so much, LCH. We really appreciate your support. And Dying Days is back. He says the manga looks pretty good. So with this being Tilt's third time on Kickstarter, you've had it on twice before. What are some of the lessons you learned from the first two campaigns that you'll be applying to this one?
Superhero stuff's really hard on Kickstarter, is the first and biggest lesson. We know a lot of people, a lot of friends of ours that do superhero stuff, and you know, unfortunately, some of them haven't been able to fund their stuff. We're blessed in the sense that we understand the business side a little bit, and we know what it actually takes to get the product done. And when it doesn't go too far beyond that we have our other campaigns like Welcome to Everville, where some of that extra money can float back to help lift up these other ones. But going into the last one, we knew it was going to be a little bit more important for us to ramp up the rewards. We really enjoy putting the packages together and having fun with them. We try to make special stuff for everybody, especially like One Last Job. The first One Last Job, people opened it up and it was a full dossier of the main character. This last one that people are getting now, they open it up and there's it's on linen paper and it's a ransom note and it's got a bloody earring pierced through it. Just special stuff that people weren't expecting and we enjoy. So that, I think, is more than anything what's brought more people back to our campaigns, is knowing that we're going to do random dumb stuff because we enjoy it. The first One Last Job campaign, it's a spy thriller, so everyone that was a first day backer, they got a fake mustache, and we just picked random ones and sent them to them. And then for Tilt, Tilt is
microfilm.
Tilt, he's a play on a lot of superhero tropes, so we get to have a little bit more fun with those. So like this campaign, one of the things they'll get if you're in the top tier is a sandwich plushie, because on that, I think it's like the first page of that, where they have that panel of Tilt just sitting on the plane wing eating a sandwich. People ask about it still constantly, and this book is a few years old now, and we just thought it would be hilarious that people could get a sandwich plushie. And then that ridiculous cover that Matt did. Yeah, that sandwich right there. That cover that Matt did for issue 4, that was, the play on the Sistine Chapel. We're going to have that printed on canvas, and so people can actually get canvas prints of the cover.
Dying Day says, as with most misunderstood geniuses, Jimmy Neutron, that would be you, became a misanthropic recluse that makes indie comics. I mean, a lot of us, geniuses, former boy geniuses, now adult male geniuses, become misanthropic recluses. I'm speaking from experience, and we do wind up making indie comics. So this is, a common characteristics that we all seem to share.
I'm not reclusive at all, though.
No, but you live in North Carolina and Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Chauncey Blakey is with us. What is up, Chauncey Blakey? Thank you so much for tuning in. And we got the link slinger himself. Thanks for tuning in, Frog. We do appreciate it. So, why don't you tell us then a little bit more about the world of Tilt? Who is the protagonist?
Yeah, so Tilt is his real name is Patrick Itil, and he's Irish and he lives in Boston. And when we first meet him, we meet him as a kid, we meet him on that plane, but we get to see that flashback sequence of him being taken when he's about 15 years old, and put into
Wicked.
a secretive place called the Council of Elders. And they are pretty much just a worldwide network of people who are running through these different people that are experiencing hyper evolution and finding ways to either exploit them, use them, or kill them if they have to. The Council of Elders is the main antagonist for the entire Kettles Comics universe, and then within each series, of course, you have your little nemesis, but they're the main bad guys, and they're in everything. So we meet Patrick, and we see that he's been experimented on, trained as a mercenary, and then when he gets a chance to break out, he breaks out. But he was taken when he was 15. So when he leaves, he doesn't know much of real life. So when we first see him outside, he's homeless. He doesn't have a job because he didn't know anything else. And he has this goal in mind to start figuring out who it was behind the whole thing. And the first person that he wants to go talk to is Exquisite, who's the guy that picked him up in the limo. So one of the fun things that I have in there, and it's just really dumb and it's really for my own amusement, is that he tried to go into the building the normal way. They wouldn't let him in. So he flew up and broke through the window. Well, now every time he goes to visit Exquisite, he just smashes through the window in the guy's office. It's just for my own kicks and giggles. Because the guy's a billionaire. He has the money. So
yeah, you can afford to like replace a window, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so the story is really going to explore him starting to understand who it was that took him, as well as his past coming back. And, you can only run so far from it. But he ties in with the Kettles Comics universe, and Paradigm's the other major player. Paradigm, his name is Ben. He's in his story just discovering that there is a Council of Elders. He has superpowers, but he shut them. He kind of pushed them back when he was 10 and went through a traumatic event and hadn't used them again until a really crazy thing happens at the end of the first issue. And he's like 21 now. So in issue 2, we'll see his powers kind of re-trigger. And then Silhouette is another major player. They're like the big 3. Silhouette is an assassin. And I can't talk about her too much because her character itself is a spoiler. But in her prose short story, what we do see is that she is hunting for her sister who was taken and put into human trafficking by the Council of Elders.
So the shadowy organization, this Council of Elders, responsible for perpetrating human experimentation to rapidly evolve a Irishman from Boston. It seems like they would have picked a different test subject in my
Well,
mind.
it was actually because of it's his parents' fault in the issue. It's because they've been around for forever, but hyperevolution hasn't been as active as it has become now. And so in our contemporary world, hyperevolution is starting to pick up its pace, and more people are starting to exhibit powers. And when he exhibited powers, instead of his parents being loving and taking care of him, trying to figure stuff out, they called whoever they could figure out would actually take him. And that ended up being Exquisite, who Exquisite works between the Council of Elders and the heroes. He's a billionaire. He kind of does whatever will keep him a billionaire. And so he's the one that sends him into the council to be experimented on, which only elevates Tilt's powers. And it also, helps establish his mentality when he gets out.
So what are his powers exactly?
It's still a work in progress as the stories progress, because there's things that I use him for to play off of tropes. For instance, like this, he's wearing a white suit, which is a horrible idea because he gets blood all over it. And so they're like, okay, well, one of the tropes we play off of is superheroes changing their costumes too much. So within the first 3 issues, he changes his costume like 3 different times. And then we see him in the blue suit, which will be his main suit. But I just wanted that little span of him in the white suit because it makes no sense. And he's just trying to figure out what's going on. And he knows that he's been through some crap, and he has a past that we're going to kind of see come about in the second one, build up and ramp up in the third, and then the real showdown in the fourth.
So he can fly.
He can fly.
He seems super strong. Maybe not nigh indestructible, because it does look like he's suffering a little bit of damage there, but certainly more than bulletproof. But we're not entirely certain the extent of everything that we can do. Like, we haven't seen him shoot webs out of his hands yet.
Right.
We haven't seen him, blast eye lasers or regenerate or anything like that, but it could be anything. Is that sort of a part of this experimental evolution where they forcefully evolve these people and have no idea what's going to happen?
It is, particularly in Tilt's case, because in Ben's case, he exhibited powers as a kid, and the council has no idea really that he exists. So once he's 21, like now when he goes up against the council, he's a new entity to them. So his powers still exist. They just haven't had a chance to try to exploit them or to experiment on them. Whereas Tilt spent all that time with them, and they tried to push him to his limits. And so discovering what things he's capable of, definitely super strength, definitely flight. There's a little regeneration but he's not, of course, invulnerable. One of the best reviews we had, somebody broke it down and they described it real simply as it's Superman if Superman didn't give a shit. And I think that was a great, apt explanation of who he is as a character.
So you have the Council of Elders, clearly, but who are the other antagonists in the series, or specifically in issue 4? What can you divulge of like the backstory here?
Yeah, so we'll discover a little bit in the second one that there was somebody from his past, and then we'll discover more in the third one that that person from his past was actually his old mercenary partner that went on a lot of missions with him. So his name is Talon, and it's one of the reasons I decided to do another fun thing in the Kickstarter. And we did a hero and a villain pack, and you can choose which one you want. And each one has a bunch of exclusive stuff between the two of them. So if you get the hero pack, it's going to have a Tilt t-shirt, a Tilt exclusive trading card. It'll have a note from Tilt and a badge that's his logo. And then the villain will have the reverse of that with Talon's t-shirt, card, note, and his badge. So Talon's the other big bad guy in this first story arc. And then in Paradigms, there's a guy named Tyson, and we meet him, but we don't know his powers or what he does yet. And then Exquisite is somewhere in between.
Cool. And I guess the clash between, or the forthcoming clash between Tilt and the Council, what kind of stakes is that going to have? I guess for Tilt, it might be certain destruction, but if he does get to the heart of who the Council really is and expose them to the world, like what kind of repercussions could we expect?
Yeah, so the end of the something that happens in the fourth issue triggers the Council to realize that, first off, Tilt's still alive, and that now they kind of really do know where he is. So what's going to end up happening is what happens when it's almost like a power vacuum. What happens in the Council of Elders if somebody actually wants to lead the Council of Elders? And we'll explore that more in Tilt's second story arc whenever we get to do that stuff. But they are everywhere. They're global. They have a bunch of different little sections. Their hands are in everything. So even in like the short story for Silhouette, we see that interaction with different mercenaries that they send after Silhouette. And it's a lot. Like there's a lot going on with the Council, and the stakes are ridiculously high, and they are going to be the main antagonist all the way through those 42 issues.
So they are like the international cabal of secretive, super rich, influential people that are trying to influence and guide the world to their own, one might say, nefarious ends.
Wow. That's right.
If they were to be uncovered, I mean, it could be catastrophic. Entire governments could crumble because, they turn out to be, obvious puppets of this secretive group. So, the ripples, the repercussions could be, drastic.
Mm-hmm.
You said there are going to be 42 different stories that cross over into like one big event comic. How do they fit into the world with the Council of Elders?
Yeah, so these are Again, these are outside of ones like One Last Job and Welcome to Everville. That's why we have a separate imprint that's called Uprising, and that's where those are, because they're not attached to the superhero stuff. But within the superhero world, there are paradigm stories, there's tilt stories, there's silhouette stories. There's another character that has not been talked about yet named Quantum, and then there's another one that's in New Orleans that's Shift and Sage, or it's a duo. And all of those have their own little. There's a map that we post sometimes. Every time we complete another one, we cross it off and we post the map so people know where it is. But Tilt has, I want to say Paradigm and Tilt both have 3 full story arcs. Silhouette has 2 story arcs. Quantum has a piece of one. And then Shift and Sage have a 2-issue special and then a 1 story arc. And then all of that is what's going to be leading to that 3-issue crossover. 3 issues right now. It might, go bigger. But yeah, the Council of Elders are the overarching thing that connects all of these different characters.
Can you tell us anything about these other characters? Like Paradigm, I know it was your first book that you put out. What are Paradigm's abilities? And I guess, like, as far as Paradigm is concerned, is there any relationship between Tilt and Paradigm directly?
Yeah, so Paradigm, Ben, his powers are there's sonic waves, sonic blasts that come they emit typically from his hands, but when he didn't know how to control it, it was out of his entire body, and that's what caused a whole event that leads to the chain of what the story arc is. Silhouette, she can pretty much cast a version of herself somewhere else, and then she can make the decision to either snap to where that
one or the other. That's
yeah.
Cool.
So for her, like that's her kind of main thing. So we get to see her and Paradigm fight in the end of Paradigm's first story arc. Shift and Sage. They're both based in New Orleans, so they're going to play a little bit into voodoo and stuff. But Shift has a talisman, and he's like a nerdy kid, but he has a talisman that lets him shift into almost like a hulking brute style character. And then Sage, she is a New Orleans bartender who doesn't even have superpowers. She just a really dope person and likes to hunt people down. She's like detective style. And then Quantum I haven't talked much about, but Quantum is my goal for him is to be a golden age superhero in contemporary time. So super annoying because everything out of his mouth sounds like old Superman comics. And just seeing that interaction in today's time, I think would be funny. So he's part of that.
Very awkward.
Yeah, for sure.
Incredibly awkward. Just like a resurgence of like old school traditional values.
And just the only one with a cape for no reason.
But here's the thing. You have to make him like...
He have like extra cape.
You have to make him completely impervious. You have to make him the apex of all of the superheroes, where it's just like nothing could touch this guy, because the only, I guess, like repercussions he should face would be social repercussions.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
You can't take this guy to jail, but you could put him in Facebook jail.
Right.
And he wouldn't understand. I think that would actually be an interesting setup for a comic. So do I saw on you also have a Substack. So let's start there.
Yes.
You also have a Substack and you write a bunch of blog posts. I saw in one of them that you'd already picked out a Dungeons and Dragons character. If you'd never played, because you've never played before, and you said what you said about Silhouette, and I thought of this power that a certain class of cleric gets. I think the cleric of the trickster god. It allows them to create like a doppelganger and pick if they want to switch with Echo Knight or something. Adam was telling me about. I don't remember. What's the D&D character that you would play, and have you played D&D yet?
I've never played D&D, but I listen to a lot of D&D podcasts.
We have to fix this.
I mean, I would love to.
You're the second person who has said to me they've never played Dungeons and Dragons in indie comics and would really like to. So I think we're going to have to get a group together.
I would love to, honestly. And I only haven't because I worry. Okay, so there were friends that myself and Matt both hung out with, and we were like, "Oh, it'd be awesome because they play." And then we were like, "You guys do voices for your characters and stuff?" And they're like, "Nah." And we're like, "Well, I don't want anything to do with that." I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, you want to go all out, man.
I don't want to sit around and just generally chat. I want to like get dumb with it. And so like I listen to like some of my all-time favorite podcasts that I listen to are like Dungeons and Daddies. because it's just freaking hilarious, and they're in a whole new season now and a whole different change up. And then I've just now started going back through Not Another D&D podcast. But yeah, I have like 4 or 5 different D&D podcasts I do listen to. I've just never played it, but my character, because I'm a musician and a singer, I of course want to be a bard, and I thought it's a hill gnome bard,
Hill
I guess would be
Hill dwarf.
yeah, hill dwarf bard, and I named him Umrad Pebblebrecker. Just I don't know, because it's a dumb name. And my
But
catch
what's
to
his
him,
gimmick? What's his gimmick?
his gimmick is anytime he does sing, it's in like a Rat Pack style, so like Frank Sinatra or whatever.
I love it.
I could see it. I could see it'd be great. I mean, a lot of people that I know, like who really want to like get out of the, shed their shell, get out of their skin or whatever, and really play something fun, play a bard, because you can get away with that.
Speaking of D&D, if you are looking for a live stream to watch, not just listen,
You should go check out
D&D, which is starting in 5 minutes.
Yeah, Dice Dames and Dudes, right?
Yes,
Did Frog
it
G
is
drop the link?
Of
Yeah, this is their
course,
second season,
of
by the
course,
way.
Of course,
Nice.
that's right.
So
That's right.
they also have merch that you could pick up if you're so inclined. I saw the mouse pad; it looks great.
Crooner Dwarf.
Crooner Dwarf.
Absolute Crooner Dwarf.
Exactly.
Yep. You have to make a special subclass in the Bard tree just for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Armin says, "Hey, what's up? How's it going, Brian? Over here lurking while I cook my dinner. Count me in. Can I be some sort of orc human hybrid? Yeah, they're half orcs.
Yeah,
Absolutely."
good.
Armin said he hasn't ever played D&D and doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, and I think he would love it. It's like improv group storytelling. So you're an actor,
which is why Josh hates it, because improv. But we also got 24 Eyes with us. Thank you so much for tuning in, brother. Glad to have you here with us. So if you're interested in throwing together like a one shot or a 3-session thing that I would run for you, send me an email if you're watching, or reach out to me on Twitter, and we could probably put together a group. I've got
you ran
a whole bunch of
Bargain
stuff.
Bin
Yeah, I ran Bargain Bin's
special
Christmas edition.
D&D.
I'm just going to tell you now that I'm in. Not only am I in, but the co-owner of Catalyst would totally be in too.
Oh, fantastic. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I can comfortably do 5. I could go up to 7 with a little bit of, finagling combat, but we don't generally go above 6 or 7. That's the cap. So that's the one thing about D&D is like, the people at the table, you have character dynamics, and like when you have too many people at the table, it just becomes unwieldy.
24 Eyes says second ed advanced is the best.
It's second ed, it's second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is a good book. I don't know, I feel 5th edition streamlined a lot, and it's very accessible for people now.
Second edition advanced, when I know that they're on 5e now, right?
Yeah.
When I see somebody say that, in my brain as a comic book creator, all I hear is Silver Age is the best the best comic.
That's fair, but like, you have to give respect for some of the people that have been playing since way back then. The thing is, how much of the other editions have you really tried, right? It comes down to that. Right? You have to go out and you have to try the new thing. I remember when 4th edition came out.
Is that the one that was
anime on paper?
Okay.
That was when you had dailies, encounters.
Was the like insanely overly complicated.
3rd,
right?
And then 3.5.
3.5.
Well, 3.5 was a better revision. Better revision of 3rd. 3rd was really annoying. But then 4th was like anime. It was completely different. And then they found a way to really tailor that back and streamline the skill system and made 5th edition, which it feels like for some people who are used to 2nd edition and 3rd edition, watered down, very oversimplified. But for newbies that are getting into the role-playing experience and aren't certain, like really experienced
who
with
ever remember what the mechanics are, that's me. I need cheat sheets for my cheat sheets.
It's straightforward enough that you can just play. You don't have to like be so focused and memorize your sheet.
Said there'd be no man.
Anyway, it's little side conversation about Dungeons and Dragons.
Arvin says that he will travel to Connecticut.
It happens on a lot of podcasts that I'm on. We just end up in Dungeons and Dragons. I've never even played it.
We usually do it in person, but I've learned how to use D&D Beyond and Roll20 because of the pandemic. Armin, I DM'd for quite a bit for groups of people over the internet. So it's as easy as just doing it in your house these days. Just pick a day.
Apparently Mobig's dropped a link that sums up D&D, but I'll have to watch it later.
Oh, okay.
And Rain Radio says that his wife just told him he's not cool enough for D&D.
That's okay. That's okay. You're always cool enough to learn, right? Well, I think that's going to be bringing us towards the end of our segment. What tips and tricks do you have for newbies who want to start creating comics and self-publishing them? Is there any advice that you can give to them?
Yeah, for sure. What's the easiest way to do it? Shameless plug would be the Substack that I do. And the only reason I bring up the Substack is because yesterday I did, I got accepted to do the video stuff on Substack, which is cool. And yesterday I did the first video thing, and I just talked about the hero's journey.
Yeah.
So for anyone writing, the hero's journey is the jam, because it's how basically every fantasy structure has ever been made. And it goes with almost every movie, every book you've ever read. It uses that. But what I try to tell people is that it's not a command, it's a suggestion. So to make original content out of that, what you do is you go around the hero's journey and you structure your story, but then you just pull at little pieces of it. And that's what makes it original, is getting able to rip little sections of it that like for us, we do like a huge twist at the end of Welcome to Everville that pays off what a normal hero's journey would be. But then I do one more at the end that's just like, well, that's not even what you should do in comic books. But it's the thing that people always still talk about with that book, is the way that we pulled off the ending. So I think using that as your story structure, but then seeing what pieces you can move to either other sections or what little thing can come out and completely change the feel of it's big. When it comes to crowdfunding, build your email list first. Make sure you have a healthy group of people that are even interested in the project. And if you're using Kickstarter in particular, that pre-launch page is vital. And if you just want to learn about being in indie comics, then, there's the Beards and Comics podcast, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other ones that kind of go through the trials. And that one in particular, we talk about every time we fail, we bring it up, and I still fail. I want to keep making sure I say that. We've been doing this. This is going to be our 7th campaign, and I just screwed up the last one because I sent something to print, but I sent an old file, so 2 of the dialogue boxes had nothing in it, and so that's a huge financial blunder in one sense. And then how do you spin that to your backers in another sense?
Physical proofs and pre-press, buddy.
Yeah,
that's so important.
Well, yeah, and then actually going through them.
You have to have fresh eyes. That's the other thing that I found. Like, when you work with your team, you have people that are in the company. You have your editors, assistant editors, people like that, but they get used to the book. Like their brain tells them what it should say, and they don't catch when it doesn't say that.
Exactly. So that was a huge one for us. But then I discovered there is a misprint market, which is nice. And then we also made a challenge for anybody that was a backer that wanted a copy of the misprint, or really anyone down the road that wants it. If they write in, the way that dialogue boxes were it's one right after the other. So it's a perfect spot for like a one-liner joke. And whichever one wins, we'll put into the trade of One Last Job. And just, doing fun stuff like that. And people really were like, oh, that's dope. I want some misprints then. So discovering that, and, you'll still screw up along the way. Just make it work for your backers.
Did Mo really drop the link to the original D&D?
Oh yeah, intro? Yeah. It's the intro for the original.
Mo,
anime.
you are the man. Seriously, you every day.
I love it.
Mo finds a way to reaffirm that he is just the man.
Armin says it seems like borderline anime. It's not real anime. It's like 1980s children's cartoons. Just kind of the vibe was either like anime or like the French anime.
No, I think anime, picked up on its vibe. I think that's really what happened.
Probably not. But
what I'm hearing from you though about the hero's journey is that you can kind of use it as a blueprint to build off of, and then you build your fun variations and stuff. You don't have to take it word by word as the roadmap of structure. Like you must do it this way. You can plot your story out against the hero's journey and just sort of figure out the the journey that you want your character to take step by step, and you can pull little pieces out if they don't really contribute to, or your story doesn't really adhere to that part of the roadmap. And that's something that I've done before, actually frequently. I sit down and I start thinking about my characters and how they're going to transform over the course of the story, because I'm one of those writers that likes to write according to a plan. You know, you're either a story writer or you're a character writer, or you're the third type of writer who hates being edited and you never get published. But story writers can tend to feel a little bit formulaic and stiff if they don't allow themselves to be flexible and nuanced. And character writers have a tendency to write themselves off of a cliff because they forget their own story or forget what they did before and violate their mythology and all of that. But I tend to write more according to like a sort of a predefined series of steps. You know, I have the ending in mind and I write to get there. So what you say makes perfect sense. And if you are out there doing your first story and trying to get it, you know, into people's hands or self-publish it, you want something like that is very tight, well-packaged, self-contained, and just a little nuance. You know, your characters, your original setting, you know, the world that you created for yourself, all of that's just enough to be to separate you from the pack. You know, all of us have lives that we live from beginning to end, right? And things happen. When we grow up, we all go through like transitional periods in our times. We all deal with success, setback, failure, and loss. You know, you build those things in. That's common. Everyone's going to have that happen to them. So you have to anticipate, you know, putting those chapters in the life of a character. And it doesn't mean that it's just like this other thing. No, well, I mean, we're all like each other in that.
And the reason that the hero's journey is even as important as it is because it's when a reader or someone that's just viewing a movie, that's identifiable to a reader or someone that's passive consuming it is you're looking, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, you're looking for that same story arc. That's why the hero's journey is still utilized today, and why it's still important. It's just a matter of giving each story your voice or its own voice. And like you said, which little thing can be moved that'll completely change the way that this thing ends, or a little different progression. Because, you know, you go to movies, if you're anything like me, you sit down and within the first 10 minutes, you can guess either the ending or what the big twist is. And I like to turn to my buddy, because Matt, I'm going to say it and get in trouble for it, but he's just an artist. Like, he doesn't care that much about the actual writing side of stuff. So I'll turn to him and say whatever it is. Like, you know, like the first Wonder Woman, as soon as they say that whoever it was that she fought has an injury and you see a dude walk in with a cane, I just turned to Matt and I was like, that's going to be the bad guy. And of course, you know, in the end, that's who the bad guy was. Some things, even though they're super obvious, you might realize that they weren't obvious for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you are like prescient when it comes to like plot lines. I can sit down and, you know, I'll get, you know, I can be intuitive with it and be like, oh, I think that this is what this is. This is kind of like the scenario that I see. You like call the future. You know, like you sit down and within 5 minutes, you're like, yep, that's the bad guy, or yep, they're gonna do it. You know, like you're really good at that.
Just because I read a lot, and like every story is just some amalgamation of other stories.
But that's you know, I write a lot, you know, so. But you're right. A well-defined plot will help you create those compelling characters, because generally you're plotting scenarios for your characters to be put into and react to and be shaped by. So a compelling plot creates, or a defined plot, a well-defined plot creates compelling characters, and everyone can identify with those on a fundamental level. Like you said, the hero's journey is very familiar. We see ourselves in it no matter who we are. So if you have a tight plot, you get a compelling character that everyone, no matter who they are, race, creed, religion, background, whatever, can empathize with or see themselves in, can emulate in a way, regardless of the superficial or even just like surface level distinctions. Those are more like paint jobs. You know what I mean? Like the chassis of the car, the motor of the car, the thing that makes it go. We all can, relate to that. We're all cars. You
Yeah.
put the vinyl on, you give it the sexy paint job, throw a spoiler on there. Sure, that's super cool, but you can relate to that the way you can relate to any other car that runs the same way. I do car metaphors and food metaphors a lot. I don't know what that says about me.
You're hungry.
Like cars and food.
Cars and food. Right.
I mean, there are worse things.
But yeah, anyway, with that, I think it's going to bring us to the end of the interview. We should probably get together again and talk more about writing, because it seems like you have a lot of good insight on that. That would be a lot of fun. We could get a couple people together maybe and kick a ball around and just talk about the writing process and how we like to do it. I'm always concerned about doing that because I'm always like the weird one. Like how do you write? I sit at my keyboard and cry a lot.
I'll tell you, mine changes every time.
Yeah, right.
I write a little bit different every time.
Yeah. So thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to sign up for Tilt 1 through 4, currently in pre-launch on Kickstarter.
In the description below, as well as in the chat. Also,
check out Aaron's social media pages that we've also linked in the description.
That's true.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, click the bell for notifications.
And tune into the frequency.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.